24 hours after the May Day, let's have a conversation about workers. In the midst of an economic crisis, what really has been the issues affecting the worker in this time? And we're going to break this down a bit more because there's a lot of talk we heard yesterday. When we are celebrating May Day, there's a lot of conversation that goes around it. But we want to drill down and measure the impact on the worker over the last 3 years, and then particularly over the last few months when the economic crisis has become even more biting. And then we'll begin to have a conversation. Today we have a very comprehensive panel to look at where we are with workers in the midst of the crisis that we're currently facing. So let's get to that. And we'll start from what we witnessed yesterday with the president making a few pronouncements. So the president's argument fundamentally is that this government has had the welfare of the worker at heart. And in fact, if you listen to what he said, including the government being committed to protecting incomes and pensions, that there have been 15% COLA pay to the public sector workers, that there's been minimum wage increase by 10%, the base pay has also gone up, monthly pensions have increased by 25%. He talks about the compensation of employees represents about 50% of tax revenue. His fundamental conclusion is that this government has been good to workers. But is all this the same as suggesting that the worker is better off as a result of these facts? That's where we're going to go into a bit more analysis and drilling down. And then we get to answer that question by the end of this presentation, where my guests also join me. What is the alternative reality? The alternative reality, as presented by the TUC boss at the May Day celebration, that there have been high cost of living, there's been destruction of jobs, there's an employment freeze, which we've seen as a result of the IMF program. Review of the single pay policy is something that they've been discussing, hasn't materialized yet, and that the government should not touch pensions, which is what they talked about it quite extensively. And then you move into the conversation around the domestic debt exchange, which has affected workers, private or public, right? Because we've seen that the new bonds have come into play. But then they've made proposals also to the pension funds, which is an important subject, which is why you see the TUC saying, don't touch our pensions. But there's this proposal to the pensions, and the government is saying that if you take this proposal, your pensions funds will actually perform even better. Is that really true? We don't know. But then you come to some of the key essential issues that we've now seen. They are making a point to the government, I'm talking about labor, that because of the burden that we are carrying for you in this time of economic crisis, do a few things. Number one is cut expenditure, right? Reduce the size of the government. These are low-hanging fruits that the labor has been on and on about for so long. Government hasn't budged on that. And they've made the point that IMF isn't really a solution because you keep going back to the IMF and returning broke after almost every 5 years. So this is their proposal to government. So let's get to do our own analysis on the back of that context, right? So if you look, for example, at the Ghana Statistical Service data, which is what you have on the screen here, it tells us that the lowest paid public servant right now is taking home 418 cedis. That's how bad it is. But then you look at the disparity there, where the highest paid is taking 33,855. Guess what the difference is? That is 34,000 thereabout, right? The difference is key. It's around 32,000. Significant, huge difference, disparity there, as you begin to see and appreciate. So that's a key problem that the state and the workers are having to jostle over. And then one of the things that we wanted to do for you is, if you take the computations that we've done based on the Ghana Statistical Service, right? If you take the lowest income, according to Ghana Statistical Service, right, of 418, and you look at, we're going to now compute what the real income is, which is a factor of the inflation impact or inflationary impact. So take this guy who is earning this, and there are people earning this in the public service. His real income, the money he's actually getting to spend, is only 185 cedis a month. Ask yourself, how is this individual able to live currently? Because if you are operating with this 45% inflation rate, this is what is actually The salary he's taking, this is what that salary can buy him right now. This is his real income, right? So you're looking at this disparity there. Already, this has gone off the salary he's taking at the end of the month. And this is for everybody, whether you're in public sector or not. There are people who are earning this in the private sector as well, trust me. And then you have the median number, okay, the average salary is 2,594 cedis. This person gets this in his account. But in reality, he's actually spending, when he hits his account, this amount can only buy 1,167.7 worth of goods, services, whatever it is that he wants to spend his money on. That is the real income you're talking about. Look at how much the difference is there. He's lost far more to inflation than what he's actually getting to spend. And of course, the guy who is earning 33,000 is also affected, right? So his real income is around 15,000. If you have 15,000, yeah, okay. You can survive on this 15,000. But so spare thought for the guys earning in this bracket. That is the reality of what workers are dealing with in this country right now at the rate of inflation that we currently have. And that is why the TUC boss said to them, yes, if the inflation doesn't reduce, they will keep asking for an increase in salary. So right now, I want to take your salary, and then I'll show you how to calculate what your real income is. If you are around this area, this is actually what your income is. If you're around this area, this is actually what your income is. And then you begin to see what the figures tell you. And then we haven't even come to talk about taxes, right? So this is if you like, a table that's showing you the tax you pay as compared to how much you earn. So if you're earning 400 cedi, you don't pay anything, right? But if you start earning around 500 and above, you start paying taxes to the government, right? So a lot of people will be around between 600 and 3,000. You're paying a rate of 17.5% to government, which is, if you're earning 3,600 cedis, you're paying 543.5 cedis to the government. The question is the government using this figure prudently? Is he? You have to ask yourself that question. And this is one of the key things that we've noticed. But here's my favorite bit of this. I talk about daily minimum wage and the poverty line. And as I've shown you, there are people who are earning just the daily minimum wage converted into a salary at the end of the month. That's all they earn. Now, if you come to 2022, the red you see there is the poverty line, and the minimum wage is what you see in white there. So the minimum wage is significantly lower than the poverty line, right? So you shouldn't be below this poverty line, but look at the gap we're talking about in terms of how significantly lower than the poverty line is. So we're talking about $2.15 is what the guy who is just on the poverty line should be earning. But there are people who are actually earning lower than this line in red here, which is shocking. And if you look at that trend here, it started just after 2020 and it's been widening. So there are many Ghanaians right now, public service workers, who are actually below the poverty line. They're not even on it all. They are significantly below the poverty line. And that gap here is significant. That gap. That's the point I want you to appreciate, right? So spare thought for those below the poverty line who are earning $1.13. What can $1.13 buy you in Ghana today? How do you live on that? But that is the story of many, many Ghanaians currently. This is a story of the Ghanaian worker. And if you look at the trend when it comes to the adjustments we've seen in the daily minimum wage, it's been trending downwards until 2021 when it started climbing up again. So it's been climbing, but the climb has been very, very slow. If you look compared to what we've seen in the past, where we're all the way at 16.9, the climb has been slow. And if you factor in the inflation I talked about, this climb is meaningless, right? It looks good on the graph, but it's a meaningless climb. And then let's end with this. Let's end with the base pay. The base pay is what the workers look forward to after they've negotiated the minimum wage. The base pay, if you look at the trend analysis we've done for you, you look at this line here that we've trended for you, it's showing a marginal climb. But again, put in context, that marginal climb is meaningless if you put in the inflationary effects. It's been climbing, but in real terms, as I showed you earlier, it's not taking them home, right? So that is the story of the average Ghanaian worker. But this is what I want to end with. And there's this thing that always gets the workers upset and angry. And that's why the Labour is asking yesterday, you have to do something about Article 71 office holders. So the average Article 71 office holder is taking 18,201 cedis. The single spine guy average is 1,123. Tell me if this is fair. Tell me if this disparity of 17,000 cedis between the averages is fair. The highest earner is 29,000. The highest earner here is 4,000. Tell me if this difference of 25,000 is fair. The least earner of the Article 71 office holder is 11,000. And this is as of 2016, right? So just put it in context. There were people at that time in the public service who were earning 178 cedis. But the least earner of the Article 71 then was 11 cedis. Tell me if this difference here is a fair number to have. This is back then. This is just to give you a context. If we look at it in today's terms, that gap has widened even further, I must admit. I'm going to take a break. When I return, my guests will have their say on the subject. Thankfully, we have a government, the Deputy Minister for Labour, also joining us, so we can begin to have a very honest conversation about how we deal with workers in these times, because this economic crisis we're going to be in for quite a while. So what do we do in the interim to try and begin to sort of ease the burden and the pain that the worker is facing? After the break, my guest will join me. Joining me right now for a conversation is the Deputy Secretary General of the TUC, Joshua Ansah. Thanks, Joshua, for your time here on the PMS. Also joining us is Austin Game, is a Labour consultant. We're expecting to be speaking shortly with Bright Rokubebe, who is the Deputy Labour Minister, who will join us very shortly, and Joe Kabuna, who is the President of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, who will also join us for a conversation. I want to start with the Deputy General Secretary, Joshua Ansah. Yesterday, at the May Day parade, you didn't hold back, and I'm talking about your boss. You did not hold back in talking about where the state of the Ghanaian worker. You have laid out what you believe are the issues. Do you believe that, first of all, I'm curious, who are you addressing these concerns to? The government? Or you simply wanted to get your members to understand that you get what they are going through? I'm asking that because I often wonder, when you lay out these issues as honestly as you've done, which I've illustrated, do you get the sense that the government gets you, that it gets that you are in pretty deep crisis when it comes to the state of the Ghanaian worker?
Thank you, Evans. I think that let me first take the opportunity to say hi to all Ghanaian workers and wish them a happy May Day celebration. That the national one happened in Bolgatanga yesterday. I think that the message was clear to the government. As we normally address our issues to the government, it wasn't just a rhetoric, but we want the government to know that we are sending our concerns straight to him to be addressed. As government, it is expected that you take charge and ensure that the concerns of your citizens, including workers, are addressed. So yesterday, the message was directly directed to the President, His Excellency. And for years, anytime we meet at May Day and we put some concerns across, we don't get the full result as expected. And this time around, I think that it's not going to be just a rhetoric, just a saying that we go back to sit. We are going to follow whatever you have said from A to Z. And we are going to take government also on and ensure that whatever promises, whatever responses that he gave yesterday at the Jubilee Park in Bolgatanga is adhered to. This time around, we are not going to just sit down and look on, because for years we have not achieved what is expected to be achieved during May Day. May Day is a day that we commemorate our heroes who actually died, who actually fought for the cause of workers' rights, who actually made us today enjoying the working conditions that we're enjoying. This barbaric behavior is rearing its ugly head again in this very country, where some employers are trying to trample upon the rights of workers. They are making organizing and formation of unions very difficult in this very country. And a clear example is as of the power plant in this company, this country. So, Evans, I think that the message was clear to the government, and he also gave a response. But we are going to hold government to account whatever he has said at the Jubilee Park yesterday.
Government to account. I mean, Mr. Austin Game, I just illustrated the current state of the Ghanaian worker. Let me first ask you, you've been in this business for so long. Have you seen it this bad? Have you seen it this bad over the period? Is this the worst we've had?
Well, let's be very honest. This appears to be an extremely difficult period than it used to be. And therefore, admittedly, in 2023 cannot be compared to 2001, when I was leaving the political scene. And traveling from that time to date is quite a distance. And very honest, it's a very tough period for working people and the country in general.
Yeah. I mean, and Mr. Ansal, I need to ask you that same question. You represent Labour. So when you go around and you talk to your members, do you get a sense that their current state is worse than they've ever experienced, and say in the Fourth Republic? What's the TUC's own assessment of the current state of the worker compared to where you've been before? Your worst moment. Have you seen it this bad?
It's very bad. It's very worse, Evans. I don't want to mince words at all, because this is the situation where workers in this country cannot afford to even have 2 square meals a day. This is a situation where workers cannot have money for transport to transport themselves from their homes to work. This is a situation where your income is eroded by the inflation of this very country. This is a situation where working conditions are being trampled upon by some employers in this very country. And because of our labor law, that is not too strong. That has, some of the articles have lived usefulness. Remember, employers are doing whatever they want to workers in this very country. And we all look on. So I think that is the worst situation that we find out. So workers in this country are suffering. They are suffering in the sense that in January 2023, we have an increase of 30% on the base pay. This 30% was eroded the following day by PRC announcing 30-something% increase in utilities and water and so on and so forth. So you can see that we are back to zero. Workers are really suffering in this very country and making ends meet. It's not an easy time for us at all. But as union leaders, we don't have to look on, we don't have to raise our hands in the air. We need to fight hard, we need to protect our workers, and that is our duty. And we continue to protect, we continue to fight hard, we continue to negotiate with government, and we continue to set government up so that the right things are done at the right time, so that workers can have a respite in their life. Because without the workers, no fee can turn in this very country. Evans.
Mr. Game, so that's a TUC confirming that the current state of the Ghanaian worker is the worst they've seen in a long time. So I asked the question based on the analysis we just projected when I began, that when they say the Ghanaian worker is a magician, that's what it means, is it all? Because I wonder how people are surviving on the current climate of where the inflation is and what they're earning.
Let's be very honest here. There is always a way out for everything. Mm-hmm. I do not have, clear understanding as to which area, my friends. I also take care of a number of workers in this country. myself, I'm an employer, and I can tell you on authority, those I have negotiated for, I know what their condition of service is. Now, to be very clear in this respect, if we take example of some employers trampling down the rights of working people, clearly there are clear-cut, laid-down procedures to be followed. And labor law is not a legalistic document. It is an industrial relations document that have been carefully written to enable working people to have abundant opportunity to go through a process to have all their matters addressed. Ghana is the only country where we have responded positively to the dictates of the Constitution of Ghana and also ILO Convention 144 have been bodily lifted, and we make sure that a national tripartite committee have been properly put down in the law, which gives organized labor and also the employers and government as a tripartite body, the only country under the sun where we have this kind of tripartite arrangement. And it is not for government to dictate to the workers, neither either of them. There are clear-cut procedures under 114 that they can follow to have all these concerns they are talking about fully addressed after a May Day rally like this.
I mean, so forgive me. When you say procedures to address the concern, what's the procedure exactly? What is it? What has it been made for?
Yeah, the law is very clear. The law says under Section 114 that the National Tripartite Committee, except otherwise provided in this section, the Tripartite Committee shall regulate its proceedings. So we expect that there will be cardinal rules, if you want to call it in the traditional sense, ground rules that will govern the procedure of their meeting. It is not to be dictated by government, dictated by employers, or dictated by the working people.
But in the current circumstance, the tripartite committee has finished its work. So
no, that's not it.
But they determined that doesn't it end after the determination of the minimum wage and then they go to the base pay?
No, sir. It's a wide field for them. They are to be consulted in having conversation about the economic situation in the country. I've heard my friends in organized labor call for this many times. The follow-up is what they maybe have not done fully well. I'm expecting that government, in going even to the IMF, should have sat with them and told them, like it was done in 2015, and lay out the plans they want to do, including, for instance, the pension matter that they have been talked about. Because it is inappropriate for only one side to carry all of us, our destiny, into the hands of IMF without any prior conversation around the subject matter. So I support organized labor, but there is a fully laid down bed for them to lay on. And you can find it in Section 113 of the Labor Act. It is not supposed to be dictated to by only the employer. It is not supposed to be so. They have the right to call for the meeting, and if the employer failed, they can report the matter to the National Labor Commission, and the Commission has no choice than to order the employer, than to order the government, than to order organized labor for them to go and sit down and have that conversation. That is the law.
Yeah,
and it is industrial relations.
Yeah, Joshua Ansah, I get a sense then that you have a path to addressing all the challenges that we spelled out yesterday, but you have elected to waive that right. So I guess then you are fine.
Evans, you are not fine. You are never fine, and you will never be fine until all the issues are resolved. Yes, I think Mr. Game has said it right, but I must be frank also, Mr. Game, that we have raised the issue severally. Where what is the importance of a foreign company to just dismiss workers because they want to form a union or because they are union leaders?
So in this case, we are talking about the private sector. Are you talking
I'm talking about the private sector.
Yes,
and
okay.
they are the culprits of these very issues that you are raising. Yes, we agree that Section 133 of the Labour Act is there for us to use. And like he said, tripartite meeting doesn't end after the determination of minimum wage or base pay. It's a continuous process where any issue about labor is supposed to be discussed there. Any issue about workers' welfare is supposed to be discussed. Like he said, no one party can take unilateral decision for workers or for this very country. The IMF issue that Mr. Ndame raised, we stated categorically when the IMF team came to meet us in our office that we don't support the IMF. We told the government we don't support the IMF, but government as powerful as it is actually has gone to the IMF. That is why in any statement or any opportunity that we get, we say that TUC, organized labor, has never supported Ghana going to IMF because we have never had any positive effect on workers of this country. The effects or the negative impact of IMF always catches up with the workers of this very country. Dismissals, job freeze, job cuts, and so on and so forth. That is the effect of IMF's conditionalities. So no organized labor leader has ever supported Ghana going to the IMF. The 18 times that, if you weigh the pros and the cons, what are the benefits that the workers or the employees in this very country derive from IMF program? So, Mr. Osigame, I agree with you that the processes are there, but we have actually used these processes to a certain time where we expect that government or the Minister for Employment should give order, that because the Commission rules or they give judgment, and these employers don't follow. And we look on as government, we look on as ministers, and they continue to do all these things. I don't think it's right. Let us all see eye to eye that there are rules and regulations in this country, and it must be respected by all. But labor leaders, we are doing whatever we can, so the government himself can testify. But there are more room for improvement, as he's saying. We believe that we will explore all avenues and ensure that we don't leave anything to chance for any employer or for the government to trample on the right of workers, Mr. Evans.
Okay, so let me put something that the president said yesterday to you. I mean, you painted a very gloomy picture of the state of the Ghanaian worker, but this is the president. He says he's giving you 50% COLA to the workers. Minimum wage is increased by 10%. Base pay is also increased by 30%. Monthly pensions, he says, have also gone up by 25%. If you put all that together, the president's view is the worker cannot be that bad because of all the things that he mentioned that he's done. You can't dispute the facts, can you?
Evans, 15% of COLA is how much on what? If 15% COLA on 300, how much does it come up to? 10% on 11 cities, how much does it come up to? 30% on 388 cities, how much does it come up to? 25% on 300, how much does it come up to? So you can see that this percentage that President mentioned, I mean, it's nothing to write home about because the base itself is very weak. The base is very poor. The base is very, very, very low. And in fact, if you even give a worker 100% now, 100% on 418, we'll give you 836 or something. And what is the worker going to use this money for? With a current inflation of 45% plus, it's become very, very, very difficult. And the situation is very not good for workers of this very country.
But you agree to all these increases. I mean, to put it to you more directly, TUC was at the table when you agreed 30% increase in the base pay. You were at the table in minimum wage, 10% increase, 50% increase in COLA. Once you agreed and you signed, isn't that an admission that you were okay with the increase that you were getting?
It doesn't an admission. That's the fact that we were satisfied with it. But this is negotiations. And negotiations, we definitely have to come to a conclusion, a compromise somewhere. This is a country, this is a government when we are negotiating. They bring in ability to pay, no money syndrome, and so on and so forth. We actually requested for 60% plus this very year because we knew that inflation was at 50, inflation was at 40 something. So getting anything below 60 was nothing to write home about. These negotiations took 10 good meetings. You are not getting anywhere. So it's a frustration. It's a frustration effort by, what we don't know what even to do in this very country. But you continue, Evans, you continue to negotiate and negotiate and negotiate until one day, workers of this in this very country will have something that they will be satisfied with. But as I speak to you, Evans, we can never achieve that until we change our way of negotiating minimum wage and going in for a living wage. A living wage, I think, that will be a solution of panacea to our problem.
What is a minimum wage? What is a living wage? What is you said we should change from minimum wage to living wage. What's a living wage?
A living wage, that by the name implies, is a wage that the basket that contains the basic necessities of a worker is calculated. If a living wage is meant for a worker, a wife, and 2 kids, the basic necessities like housing, like rent, like utility, like shelter, and like food, if you put all these things into the basket, it's at a level that has actually been statistically determined that this figure will at least make the worker and the wife and the 2 kids happy in this very country. But until we get there, that is my view. That until we get there, any increment on the minimum wage as it is today, when are you going to get 1,000 for a different country, which costs of over 1,000 or whatever percent? It's going to be very, very, very difficult. So we need to shift from the current determination of minimum wage to a living wage. And another way is to also index our minimum wage or the salaries to inflation. When inflation is 100%, salaries must also be increased by 100%. When inflation is 70%, salaries must also be increased to 70%. Until you do that, I don't think you are going to achieve anything good for our members in this country.
Mr. Gama, if I put to you that what you just heard there from Joshua Ansah is a fantasy, it will never happen, what will your reaction be?
Well, not a reaction. I'm a professional person, and let me just put in context that my background, I was in their shoes before. I wasn't Secretary General, but I was the District Secretary for the whole labor unions, also at TEMA before. In fact, just 3 of us, only 3 of us, organized and have Saturday as a non-working day in Ghana. Myself, Raphael Abudapi, and the late Nyamiche. We also brought about the COLA. When inflation galloped in 1983-84, we came to Accra and demanded a meeting. The TUC then gave us Dr. Mbia, and they know him very well. Mbia came and led us, and we met the Prices and Incomes Board, the late Dr. Dodo. And we agreed that we should introduce COLA at the time. And that when inflation is tamed, we take away the COLA. And because of that, we advance forward. Hitherto, we didn't have what we call wage opener. We used to have 3 years collective agreement for everybody, and every 1.5 years thereafter, then we go in to do a wage opener. Because of that situation, we agreed to advance forward a discussion on wage opener, which had become collective agreement based thing every year. That brought about it. I won't go any further on advice of my own parents, not to be talking about myself. So that is my little background. So I'm not a stranger to this, and I still manage some working people, both in the public sector as well. And let me say honestly here that my friends in organized labor, they know I doff my hat out for them. They are doing their best. But I think we have to go a little further. The little further is this. Now, determining a national daily minimum wage, we have to have a paradigm shift and the base pay as well. Because we cannot be using inflation. If it's 70, we go 70. If it's 100, we go 100. It cannot work so. If you go that route, this country will be turned upside down in 5 minutes. I guarantee you. What we can do is to take advantage of what the labor law says, and I think is the best. Maybe they are not fully immersed with it and prepared that we work together. But let me say that in determining these things, we have several ways of doing these things, including the tax thresholds. So it is for organized labor to ensure that a certain amount that people earn will not attract any form of tax at all. The barest minimum as it stands now is not enough. And I have gone to sit with the Ghana Statistical Service people one time and told them that, no, we should be very careful what we are doing. So I want to say quite clearly here that the tax threshold and various other taxes that are passed in this country, that is why the tripartite committee was established under the law. So government has no right to just go and just introduce anything, and you look on, and then later on we are complaining. That lamentation must end somewhere. We must now go into the mystery of what goes into these things, unravel and unearth it, and be able to deal with it, frontally. But I don't think that we should be saying 50 to 50, 20 to 20. No, we must demand what is appropriate. The law is very clear on our side. About 98%. What they are saying about those employers who are misbehaving by saying they will sack people is neither here nor there. We can deal with it in 5 minutes, the employer will give up. I guarantee you can deal with it 5 minutes, they will give up. So there's no time for lamentation. We can all consult and deal with it. But the long and short of it is that tax threshold must be properly addressed. The taxation system must be properly. You went to May Day yesterday. Today, the same May Day, government brought out 3 major taxes. And we didn't even talk about it at the May Day. Who used to be blamed? The labor law? No. It is we who are not taking advantage of it. If I were to be in their shoes, I guarantee you, government will come and salute me in my office the following day. I'll make sure they do what is right. I'll make sure they do it. So please, let's stop the lamentation and confront the issue. I'm prepared to come and meet them. It's my own hall. I'm prepared to come and meet them, and let's talk about it. And we must be very open to helping government. I maintain, we must be very open to helping government to enable them to manage the situation and get us out from this situation. Because this is a very turbulent situation we find ourselves in. Already we are sitting in IMF on a complete stretcher. We are not even yet in the IMF room. We are on a stretcher. We haven't got place. We haven't got ward yet. So let's be very careful.
I mean, Joshua, give me your quick take on that. The stopping the lamentation and taking these issues on in a more systematic, concerted way.
Evans, I think for this one, my senior brother Austin is somebody I respect too much because I know he has the experience in the labor relations in the country. But I was expecting to hear more from him. But he mentioned only 2 things: that tax threshold and the tax system in this very country. He is aware that government is government, and he is also an employer. It is not easy the way he's putting it, and he knows how hard, how effective organized labor is in this very country. And I'm happy he said that is there. If you need any consultation, definitely we consult him. But what I want to say is that we are not lamenting. We are taking the government on one after the other. He's talking about, we didn't talk about the taxes yesterday. It was a very strategic day that we did not want to say anything about taxes. But we are going to take the government on this taxation that has been introduced. Because before this taxes was introduced and government assented to it, I think even I personally, the organized labor rose against it and appealed even to the lawmakers not to pass this taxes. But they went ahead and did it, forgetting that we are all workers and we are all Ghanaians. And we think that we are strategically discussing this issue, and you come out with our position on this taxes that has been introduced. So we are not lamenting, but it's a way that government does work or deals with issues in this very country that is making labor relations in this country very difficult. Let me also say that this employer assembly that is misbehaving, Mr. Sengambe, I think he is aware of what is happening, because if he has already been heard it, there's a hint that the employers are misbehaving and want to sit on workers' rights. The workers, the union has done everything, gone through all the processes that he is aware. We have gone through all this, and the matter has settled by the National Commission. National Labour Commission has given its determination on this matter, but the employer is still refusing to obey. Employer is still refusing to implement the decision by the National Labour Commission. So what is the government doing? What is the employer? What is the Labour Minister and so on and so forth doing about this? If you look on, then the employer is emboldened to continue whatever he's doing. So, Mr. Hassan, we are in the same boat together.
I agree.
We will discuss, we will consult, but we think that let us all agree to move on. If you say you should help the government, I want to know in which way, because you have sacrificed a lot. When they are asking us to sacrifice, they are not sacrificing. So, if you can throw more light on the way and manner we should support the government in this developing this better. But I think, from my view, I think we have done what we can.
Yeah,
we have sacrificed a lot. We have done whatever we can. But still,
Mr. Hassan, on that last point you made, I need to ask you. You've consistently complained that government is not playing its part. They are not cutting expenditure. They are not reducing the size. Yesterday, you mentioned it again. But the question remains: what have you done about that? Hello, Mr. Ansah.
Evans, I think that since you're chair, yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Can you hear me, Evans?
Yes, I can.
Yes, what I'm saying is that you're saying in future or trauma in here. Yes. A day will come, you will have to use every means possible to ensure that we force the government to do what we're asking him to do. Because it will come to a time you will no longer listen to any sacrifice or whatever. You will make sure that as Ghanaians, as workers of this very country, we become citizens and not spectators. Because you cannot tell us to do A, why should we continue to do B? Why are government officials still flying in business classes and economy and the rest? Whilst the people that we are going to borrow money from them fly in economy class. Is that the way? Is that a good example to show that we are sacrificing? I don't think it's right. So we will continue to say, and government will continue not to do it, but the day will come where unions will also show.
Yeah, but the question that many workers have asked is, when will that day come? Because since last year, at the beginning of last year, when we saw that the economy was heading for a crash, Labour started making these demands. I remember yourselves, I remember the NAGRAT, I remember UTAG, I remember GMA. You have consistently insisted that government should cut expenditure, reduce the size of government. It's never happened. So when will that day come?
I can assure you, Evans, that day will come soon. That day will come soon. Because
that's the point I was raising.
They are all in this country, and my senior brother said we should all help in developing this country. Why do you want us to help in developing this country, and you don't want to listen when you talk?
No, so many will say, many will insist.
Not that we are going to sleep. Yeah, we are statistically discussing the issue, and our.
Yeah, sorry, go on. You say you are discussing the issue, and you.
Yeah. Hello, Evans.
Yes, I can hear you. Say you are discussing the issue.
Yes, differently, like I said, one day, yes, we are still discussing the issue, and one day, government will hear from us.
Yes, and
because it's like what we are saying is falling on deaf ears, and one day we have to open that ears to listen to workers of this way.
I just want to put it to you that government is not listening to you because they feel that Labour, TUC, you are all back and no bite. So on that matter, when you started biting, when you started biting on the issues of low wages and pensions, they gave in. But on the subject of reducing expenditure, reduce the size of government, you backed a lot. You haven't bit yet.
I think that wild lions don't back, but they bite. The wild lion, the wild and the dogs that catches thieves, they don't back. will slowly bite you and they will slowly catch you, and you can't stand still. I think that is the situation you find ourselves now. I believe that when it is time for us to back and bite, we will definitely do that. I can assure you that we are not people who just go out there and make noise. We make noise. We make noise because we know what we are after.
Okay.
And the day we all rise up to make noise, government and everybody in this country will understand that I think workers are right. Today, union organized labor is right to actually demonstrate its happiness to the whole world to hear. So, Evans, I can assure you that the day is coming soon. It's not too far, where you see as the TUC backing and biting at the same time with organized labor. Evans, let's rest assured that there's time for everything. Whether it is long or what, one day, the journey that starts 1,000 miles will definitely end one day. And then the whole country will see what is going to happen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that's the Deputy Secretary General of the TUC and Mr. Austin Game. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you.